welcome to the Dill Pickle Movie Network and my review of Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore. This film is the third in this Fantastic Beasts trilogy. This Fantastic Beasts trilogy was originally supposed to be its own spin-off of the Harry Potter films, but it has kind of turned into a pseudo-prequel to the Harry Potter films by bringing in characters like, of course, Albus Dumbledore, and bringing up just some other little familiar faces that really make it very clear that this is a prequel more so than a spin-off. But, you know, more on that later. Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore obviously focuses on the character of Dumbledore, not just Albus Dumbledore, played by Jude Law, but some other characters that are also connected to the Dumbledore family line. You have Richard Coyle as Aberforth Dumbledore, and then you also have Ezra Miller as Credence, who was revealed in the last film to also be part of the Dumbledore family bloodline. They do kind of course correct a few of the details that they put into the last film to make it a little bit more clear on who exactly he is in regards to Albus and Aberforth and all these other characters, but this really is, at the heart of it, a film about Dumbledore and his relationship to Grindelwald. Obviously, we know just by the mythology of Harry Potter and this whole franchise that Grindelwald and Dumbledore had a romantic past. This film follows Dumbledore as he assembles his first army to take down Grindelwald as Grindelwald rises to power. It's kind of interesting to see the very first Dumbledore's army, since in the Order of the Phoenix we saw the very last iteration of Dumbledore's army led by Harry Potter. Of course, part of Dumbledore's army are the Fantastic Beasts characters that we kind of know and somewhat love, like Jacob Kowalski, played by Dan Fogler, and of course Newt Scamander, played by Eddie Redmayne. Joining Newt is his brother, Theseus, played by Callum Turner, and then some other characters that were in the past movies but aren't really given a ton to do in this one. Two of the characters being sisters Queenie and Tina Goldstein. In the last film, Queenie kind of turned to the dark side, and in this film, it feels like with that turn to the dark side, all the emotion has just been like drained out of her. She is a walking zombie, just like Ezra Miller. I mean, the two of them very much feel like they're in like their own little zombie movie because they feel like they're sleepwalking through the whole thing. I don't blame them. I more so blame the direction their characters took in this film. It very much feels like they're just kind of going through the motions. And then Tina, Queenie's sister in this film, played by Catherine Waterston, is pretty much invisible the entire film. She's barely in the film. There's one shot of her looking at some sort of screen in the middle of the film, and then at the very end we get a little scene with her, but she's very much absent from this film, and they do address it in a very, you know, half-assed kind of way. I don't want to really get into the reasons why Tina was such a lesser character in this film. Some of it might have to do with Waterston's own opinions on J.K. Rowling's opinions that were very, very much publicized in media, but I do think it is a disservice, especially if you're looking at this as one giant trilogy, to see some characters that were such giant presences in these first two films just feel like afterthoughts in this one, like they almost didn't know where to fit them in. There are other characters along the way too, but it is mostly about Dumbledore, Newt Scamander, and Grindelwald. Those are our three figureheads, and of course Jacob gets a lot of fun moments as well, but even his arc in this film, the trailer made it out to seem like he was a much bigger presence in this film than he actually is.
Dumbledore asked that I give you something, Jacob.
Are you kidding me right now?
He has a lot to do in this film, but he's not as much of a focal point as the trailers made it out to be, with him receiving this wand. In reality, it's just kind of like a stick.
Very dangerous. It's very powerful. If it got in the wrong hands, you know.
It did provide for some funny moments here and there. And I bring up the funny moments because I think the issue that I have with this entire trilogy as a whole, looking at it as one cohesive unit, is that these started as Fantastic Beasts movies. These started as movies that wanted to be their own thing, you know, focusing on the fantastical nature of these little creatures and just seeing how much further down the rabbit hole we could go with all the Wizarding World stuff. And it was really interesting. It was a really fun first movie. But then as the movies went on, it became more and more about Dumbledore and Grindelwald, to the point where the Fantastic Beasts themselves feel like the biggest afterthought of all. There are scenes in this film that have the Fantastic Beasts at the forefront. I think those are the most impactful scenes in the whole film. There's a scene about halfway through the movie where you've seen in the trailer, Newt Scamander's kind of mimicking these little insect-like bugs to try to navigate out of this little cave prison type thing while he's saving his brother.
Swivel, but delicately.
I'm swiveling like you're swiveling.
That scene is really, really fun because they can really play into the idea of all these different creatures having these own little sensibilities, their own uniquenesses. It's almost like a Pokemon lover's dream, all these little creatures. You know, you can really go far into the fantasy elements of that, you know, have a film that appeals more to a broader audience, more to a child's perspective, because Harry Potter, as we know, started as a children's film, and then as each film progressed, it got darker and darker and darker, to where when David Yates took over as director, it really fit the tone and style that this franchise had slowly built to. But with 3 films, and under the same direction, David Yates's, it almost feels like they started at a semi-dark place and got only darker, but in only 3 films, it feels like it got way too dark, way too fast, and all those Fantastic Beasts were unfortunately left behind. And then those Fantastic Beasts that we get in this film, aside from that one really great cave sequence like I mentioned, a lot of the Fantastic Beasts suffer some really harsh tragedies. We see a lot of Fantastic Beasts dying in this film, and it really made for a rather uncomfortable watch, because I'm going into this movie saying, oh, it's a Fantastic Beast movie. I'm going to see all these great creatures, and they're going to come to life, and I can't wait to see and explore all these different, nooks and crannies of this universe. And then a scene into the movie, one of these Fantastic Beasts is getting killed, and then their baby's getting killed also. I'm like, what are we watching? I mean, this was obviously a darker franchise when it ended with Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, but there was always those glimmers of hope, those glimmers of good warm-heartedness that I feel like this movie has some glimpses of, but it's completely overshadowed by the darker stuff. I'm fine with the franchise going in a darker route if you want to focus the film on Dumbledore and Grindelwald, but by calling it Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore, there are 2 halves to that whole, one being the Fantastic Beasts and one being the Secrets of Dumbledore, and I don't think the lightness of the Beasts in concept meets the darkness of the Dumbledore storyline in concept, to where they just don't feel like they fit together to make up a cohesive whole. I honestly think if this was branded as The Secrets of Dumbledore, a Wizarding World story, I think it would have been a lot more successful, because I think a title really sets an expectation. I think by putting that Fantastic Beasts label on it, it almost misguides the audience into thinking it's something that it's really not. It would be like calling the Harry Potter movies Seamus Finnegan and the Goblet of Fire, Seamus Finnegan and the Order of the Phoenix. Seamus Finnegan is in all the movies. I like Seamus Finnegan, but he is not the focal point. Harry Potter is the focal point, and that's why all those movies are called Harry Potter and this, Harry Potter and that. In this film, if you're going to call every movie Fantastic Beasts, make it about the Fantastic Beasts and then how they correlate to these subplots. Instead, it feels like Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore, rather than the Fantastic Beasts being the giant marquee event. I just think eliminating Fantastic Beasts from the title allows them to still use the beasts without needing to shoehorn them into being more important to the story than they actually are.
3 points to Hufflepuff.
All those gripes aside, I do think this film is a bit of a mixed bag. I think it starts off a little weaker. It kind of reminded me of some of the faults I had with The Crimes of Grindelwald, in the fact that it was a little disjointed in where it wanted to go narratively. It was just way too dark and grim. It didn't really fit the imaginative nature of any of the other Wizarding World films. But then about halfway through the film, like I said, there's this really, really great cave sequence, and I think from then on, I started to click with this film a lot more. I think it ends much better than it starts. I think that's because they really want to up the magic as it goes along. There's this really great fight throughout the streets where there are these 5 identical briefcases, and one of them holds this really magical beast inside of it that everyone's trying to get their hands on, one to destroy it and others to protect it, and it's really fun seeing how all these different characters navigate around this town with these little briefcases. That kind of stuff is really exciting because we also get some good wizard action. People, throwing people into walls, but then becoming part of the wall graffiti art, like really imaginative ways of using this magic in a new way. And I think that kind of stuff is what kind of took me back to that first Fantastic Beasts film, took me back to the original Harry Potter films. Yeah, you can still be dark, but I think you can't lose the fact that this is, in a broader sense, an imaginative adventure story. It's a fantasy. You're supposed to have fun with this first and foremost. Yes, you can get dark, but I think because the Grindelwald and Dumbledore stuff just on its own is dark enough, is deep enough, has enough emotion as is, all the other stuff, the action, the different, bouncing around from location to location, the Fantastic Beasts stuff, it can just be a lot more fun than it is. And I think the second half of the film does a better job in making it more fun than that first half.
What is this place?
The room we require.
Like I said, I think Credence is sleepwalking throughout this film. I was really excited to see the secrets of his Dumbledore story, but, some of the revelations were a little underwhelming. Like, I feel like they could have gone a little further with his character. Again, like I said, Queenie, they set her up to be a very interesting villain in the last one, and then they kind of make her a henchman to Grindelwald, same as Credence. They just kind of are there, and yes, they have a purpose, but their purpose is not as defined as Grindelwald's. Grindelwald has a very clear objective, a very clear motive, and I think that is why this film film does work better than the last one is because Mads Mikkelsen as Grindelwald and Jude Law as Dumbledore do really, really fantastic jobs in this franchise. They really understand their roles. They really understand the history between the two of them, even if the movie itself kind of dances around the history a little bit. You know, these films are going to be released in international markets. In China, stuff like LGBT themes are cut out of films to make it fit within their distribution policies. And I think part of the fault in that is that there are some scenes in this where, you know, you can say, I was in love with Grindelwald, and that very short little line of dialogue can easily be cut out. And I wish this film had a little bit more boldness to go there with the relationship and really explore this relationship thoroughly, because I think the relationship between the two main characters is the most intriguing aspect of what is now this prequel to Harry Potter. You know, it's this relationship between Grindelwald and Dumbledore, and I wish they just dove even deeper into that without having to just like put little one-liners here and there that they can easily cut out to release in China. I know I sound a little bit more negative than I do positive about this film, and I think it's because I am such a fan of the Harry Potter films and this whole Wizarding World franchise. I think the more of a fan of something you are, the more you have to be critical of it because you want it to be great. You want every film to be as good as your favorite film. Prisoner of Azkaban, Deathly Hallows Part 2, those are some of my favorite films of all time. So to see a film that is good, better than the last one, but still not capturing the magic of everything else that came before it, you know, it is disheartening to see. But as a fan of this franchise, I want it to succeed. That's why I hope they make more. I hope this makes enough money at the box office so they can go and explore those avenues. Maybe get rid of the Fantastic Beasts name and keep going with this Dumbledore storyline or this Grindelwald storyline, or separate the two and keep going with the Fantastic Beasts in their own franchise and the Dumbledore and Grindelwald stuff in its own franchise, and, you know, have a franchise that's darker and have a franchise that's more fun and lighthearted and focused on these creatures. Make it almost like your Pokemon of the Wizarding World. You know, I think this has a lot of potential, this franchise and this series. If this is where it ends, I think they tied up a lot of the nice loose threads. I think the ending leaves all the characters in a pretty nice spot. Even Credence and Queenie, who I thought were severely underdeveloped in this film, did seem like they had really nice endings to their arcs in this story. The only character, like I said, that I felt was really gypped was Tina, and even then I feel like they did at least resolve her storyline well enough in this film. I really liked some aspects of this film to where I would like to see more of it, but if this is where it ends, I am content with that as well, because I think this was a better finish than the last film, and I think it did improve upon a few things while still falling into a few traps all the same. So this is a mixed bag for me, but I do encourage you, if you are a Wizarding World fan, go out and see it, so then you can also lend your voice to the conversation, because I think it's important for fans to talk about the things they love and talk critically about the things they don't love in order to make the things they love even better, to kind of recapture the magic, if you will, no pun intended. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe it, comment it up. A new show coming up, Draft Day, very, very soon on the channel, and of course all the other shows that I have on this channel, Frame Wreck, Picture This, Marvelous Movie Mondays, all those shows, Recipe for Reality, they are all still on this channel, and we'll be churning out the episodes as the weeks go on and as we approach the summer movie season. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time.